All right, what's good? What's good? I'm sorry that we're late. It was all Jax's fault.
It really was.
It's got to be somebody on CP time.
Well,
yeah, I figured I'll just start off festivities by just throwing you under the bus immediately.
it's all right. I have a house full of people, and they throw me under the bus all the time. So I'm used to being under the bus.
I'm putting the cheeky one, yeah, because I was telling Cross just a minute ago, like my son's awake and rampaging around the house right now, so you might see a very solid reason for why we should have never, maybe we should have worn protection. You know what I mean? It's just a little lesson for Cross here, but you might see a kid come in and just rampage. So I'm just warning people in advance, like it could get to that. But how are we all doing, man? It's been a minute since we've done this.
Yeah, man. Good. Tired. We're good though. Good. I'm definitely excited to talk about this because I mean we talked about it a little bit in in our chat or whatnot, but I know we were kind of saving the good stuff for this conversation. So I'm very interested to hear what y'all have to say for sure.
I wonder if we can keep the streak going and me having like contrary opinions to the both of you.
I actually like the show when it's like that. Like the vibe is pretty good when it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine the audience think I'm doing it on purpose as well. I'm really not.
Now Sniff already wilding. Look at what Sniff said.
What's the name of this brat doll with post getting dicked down hair that you are reminding me of right now? If I fucking know, I'm not telling you, you cunt. How about that? I'm not giving you clips. You got enough already.
Man, they stay on you, Frankie.
I'll bring it on myself, to be honest. It's my journey. I planted these seeds a long time ago, and now I'm reaping the shitty benefits, the shitty rewards. It is what it is. So first thing, I guess we can get into before we go balls deep into the actual questions is, how did you feel about the card in general?
I'll let you go, Cross. I'll let you go.
Man, I enjoyed the card. I mean, going into it, I was saying on Twitter that I thought the prelims were going to be better than the main card. So it kind of went as I expected, but I enjoyed the card. I had a good time. What about you guys?
Man, I put in the chat. I had to go back and rewatch it because, like, when I was watching it, I was just like, nah. And I don't know why. Like, there was finishes, but I felt like there wasn't like that one fight that was just like, this is a barn burner. Like, this is wild. Yeah, there were close fights, but there wasn't anything like specifically like the Duho Choi Nate Landwehr fight. Like, I thought that was going to be a real like back and forth thing, and it wasn't. Even though I was right with my pick, it wasn't really necessarily about that. I wanted a good fight, and I didn't see like most of the wins that were finishes. They were really, really one-sided. So I don't know. I went back and watched it again, and I mean, it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't trash. It wasn't trash or nothing like that, but it was all right.
I think my expectations have been lowered a bit, maybe, because I actually thought I enjoyed the card. Like, I wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was lagging through it like I have with a lot of cards this year. You know how that's been. I felt like, do you know what really helped? It might have been just that, like, the pacing at the beginning of the card felt quite nice to me. Like, it felt like it was one fight after the other in the early prelims, certainly. And I think that helped a great deal. It was like we got through the first 4 fights in what felt like a little under an hour. And I was like, no, this is like, I don't know if it was like a concerted effort of the UFC to do that. I imagine not, because, money and all that. But
yeah,
it felt like that helped so much to kind of just have that. I don't think we had any fights that were necessarily stinky or terrible. I was genuinely happy with it. I think what it was, is that it felt like the outcomes of the fights were so important this time that the fights themselves didn't really matter as much, because it was like, we're going to get a conclusive winner between Shavkat and Garry, which is important. I thought we were going to get a fair and conclusive winner between Volkov and Gane, which was going to be important. And then there was the excitement of like, all right, what can Asakura do? Like, I felt like there was stakes. So regardless of how the fights turned out, there was something to look forward to. And I think that carried me through the card.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think the expectations, like they said everything. Like, what was it, UFC 301? That the one that the last card that Alexander Pantoja headlined, right? That was one that our expectations were low, and you know, when the card came out, it exceeded our expectations. I don't think that my expectations were high or low in this one. It was just like, and it may be just the season, and I know that, you know, we're about to get into this lull, and it's just like, you know, this is where we're ending. You know, obviously we have a card, you know, this week, but as far as pay-per-view cards, this is where we're ending. And it was just like, I'd rather end on something a little bit more exciting, at least from those top fights. And they were fights, but you know, and maybe that's really what it was, that just the Rachmanov and Garry fight and Tsarukyan and Volkov fight didn't hit like I thought it was going to hit.
Do you know what the problem you get with a lot of those situations? It's like when you get two very, very high level guys that are fighting against each other, and I consider Rachmanov and Garry in particular to be really high level, it can result in a stinker of a fight because they're both so good and they're both very wary of each other. And it can result in them not blowing the other guy away. I don't know why I put it that way, but you know, it's like it can happen. It's like
that's a
sort of affects
situation.
It shouldn't be taking 10 minutes for me to say, or in this case 7 minutes for me to say something accidentally zesty before we it doesn't it's alarming me at how easily this happens these days. I'm sorry, or not. But yeah, I think that's the issue. And I think like I personally enjoy, as somebody who's been watching the sport for a long time, that fight in particular I really enjoyed because it felt tense. You know, it felt like if one of these guys make a mistake, something's gonna happen.
You open up the doors, you see Ikev.
Yep. For me, man, this card felt very professional. Like it wasn't any bad blood on the card. It wasn't any of that. Like anybody wasn't trying to really prove something to the other person. Like everybody was all professional. Like we're professional fighters. We going in here and we're gonna compete. You know what I mean? And I like that part of it, but I like it when it gets a little nasty too.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you know, when it comes to like Shavkhats and Garry, which we'll talk about later, but like you said, it was professional. It was a very professional fight. Garry is a person who a lot of time has some negative things to bring into the conversation, but this time was about, you know, what he brings to the table from a fighting standpoint. And I will say it did kind of make me respect him a lot more. I mean, I've said many times on this platform that I don't like Ian Garry, but the way that he handled this leading up to it and the fight itself made me respect him a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of subscribe. So I guess we could start with that. Then we can talk about. I think what a lot of people saw as the real main event of the card. I guess we'll talk about Shavkat and Garry. What did you guys think? Like, what do you think is? Well, first of all, what did you think of the fight itself, and what do you think is next for both men?
I mean, I know after the fight, like it came out that Shavkat was hurt. So, I mean, I don't know how much stock I put into it, but if it in fact is true, then obviously, you know, like MCL, that definitely is going to affect Shavkat. But I think more so that just shows Shavkat is like a dog, and he's one of those fighters that isn't afraid to go into a fight a little bit banged up. As far as the fight, though, it seemed like they both had so much respect for one another. Neither guy really wanted to put themselves on the line and like really risk it to like, because if you think about it, round one, Shavkat won the round literally on one strike. He landed one strike at the end of the round that won him the whole round. And round two wasn't very much different. I think he landed like 2 good strikes, and that may have given him a round, but it it felt like both guys were fighting not to lose and not fighting to win.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I think that that was something that I would expect from Gary, but I wouldn't expect it from Shavkat. But seeing as though he was injured, maybe that played a part in it. And you kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He had 18 times before this where that wasn't the case, and he showed what he could do. And this is the one time that he was injured that we know of, and he wasn't able to close the show against a very, very high level person. So I give him the benefit of the doubt on that. And Ian Garry, I think that when he fought MVP, I felt that he fought a more strategic fight, and it was more of a, even though he was trying to win the fight, it was more of a I can't lose situation. I don't want to get in dangerous situations, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't lead to a crazy exciting fight, which, you know, sometimes that's not what's necessary to get the win. So it is what it is. I mean, I thought it was cool though.
I thought what interested me the most about the fight, I think what most people were expecting is they were expecting like Ian Garry to be, thank you. Oh. Sorry, the son just gave me a piece of bread.
Nice.
Thank you.
My son doesn't deliver bread to me.
I'm pretty sure it's because he doesn't want it. You might wrap this around the toilet for all I know, so I've got to be careful. He's in that kind of mood. It's a bit suspicious. Yeah, no, I think what really surprised me about this one was, well, not me, because I've been saying this for a while, but I think people were expecting Garry to be a bit better in the stand-up and for Shavkat to be a bit better in the ability to take down. And the weird thing about that fight is it kind of felt like it went the other way around. And I've been talking for a little while about Garry actually being a better grappler, or expecting Garry to be a better grappler than people are expecting. I saw a lot of his stuff on the regionals going back when I made a video about him. And I felt like it was something about him that was underrated. And it's also he's somebody who's very much a student of the game. And I knew that the reason he was taking the fight is because he probably knows he's cleaned up a lot of that stuff that he didn't have while he was at Killcliff. But then it was Shavkat, funnily enough, he was catching Garry with the bigger shots and the bigger moments. And there was no doubt about who won the fight. But the weird thing about it was, it felt like, and a lot of people have echoed this as well, it felt like Gary's stock went up and Shavkat's stock went down, despite the fact that Shavkat was like the clear winner. Because I think most people were saying like, oh, look, Shavkat's going to destroy Belal, this kind of stuff. And it feels like the majority of polls that I'm seeing and talk that I'm seeing is that now people are kind of like, nah, Belal's probably going to deal with him, which was interesting. So it felt like a weird thing of like, Garry kind of ended up winning in that situation, which is not what I was expecting. I knew he'd do well. I mean, you heard me saying over the last week, and then I was worried that Garry was going to win the fight and ruin the whole year. I've been saying it for a little while. And in an indirect way, he's kind of done that. So from that point of view, it's a bit deflating.
For me, something else I kind of got out of this fight was, to me, I look at Ian Garry now as just a point fighter. Like, I think he's just trying to like score points, get ahead, and try to like win that way. To me, I don't see a guy that, even when there's danger, like he's trying to like get a finish. You know what I mean? Like Shavkat, I mean, he definitely looked a bit more hesitant in pulling the trigger as well. And I think that probably had a little bit to do with both them just being the same size, because I'm pretty sure they're both used to always being the bigger guy when they go in there and fighting somebody their own size, and they don't have that natural advantage anymore. Probably played into it a little bit. But for me, I think it definitely gives you a little bit of pause and lets you think about how they can deal with that pressure and wrestling style of Belal, either guy going forward, you know? Because for me, I feel like that's the style. If like you definitely have to have a recipe for that game plan, because I mean, there's so many of those guys that end up get to the title in the UFC right now with that style. And I don't know why more guys don't just figure out like, hey, like I have to have a game plan for this style, because at some point I'm gonna run up against a guy like that.
True. Like on the flip side, like aren't we glad that this is the fight that happened now instead of Shavkat against Bilal when Shavkat is injured? Because Shavkat was going to take the fight.
Good point.
You know, so
Very, very true. Yeah.
like, and he would have lost out on being healthy going into that fight. Like, I'm glad that it happened the way that it did for all parties involved. I'm actually happy for Gary that he was able to show that he belongs. And I think that all of the up and comers, like we saw with Sean O'Malley, we saw with Umar Nurmagomedov, they have that prove it fight against somebody to show that they belong up there with the top tier. And he showed that even in losing, which we thought that the other two were going to do, and in some cases a lot of people think that Peter Yan did beat Sean O'Malley, but they all three of them showed that they belonged, and Gary he did that. He showed that he belonged. That's what impressed me the absolute most about him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were like, again, the narrative. I think people haven't been separating Ian Garry the man and Ian Garry the fighter, because Ian Garry the man is a bellend. He's an annoying, cringy bellend, but like as a fighter, he's very, very good. You can see the IQ is there and the danger's there, and I don't feel like, I know a lot of people are tooting about how Shavkat stock dropped, and I more tend to think that I disagree with it, because I know that it wasn't his best performance, but I think it kind of shows what a threat Gary is and what he was worried about coming back. And I don't expect that he's going to have the same problems with Bilal. And I know that Bilal comes with a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of fire you've got to get through with that. But I don't think he comes with the same power and the same striking diversity that Shavkat's going to have to worry about.
True.
And I think that will play into a factor. But I will say this though: if Shavkat has the same output against Ian Garry as he did against Bilal, he's going to get destroyed. Well, destroyed Bilal style, not destroyed in a
to a decision.
He'll be destroyed to a decision.
Oh my goodness, he won't be hurt, but he'll feel bad about himself.
Yeah, but I think in terms of, I mean, it's pretty obvious what's next for Shavkat. He'll get Bilal. Hopefully, it will be midpoint of next year. Give them both time to heal up. What would you do with Garry though? We've had some good suggestions in the chat. Like, what would you do with him?
Oh man, so tough. I think maybe I would do Ian Garry against Leon Edwards. I think that would be very interesting.
I don't hate that.
I mean, especially for a UFC London card. And now it could backfire and it could be boring.
Yeah,
it could be very boring.
It probably will be.
But they are names. They're names. So I think it would be interesting, at least leading up to it. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe one of them makes the other one fight, and maybe Leon has a different mindset, considering, he just lost his belt to somebody that he thought he would win easily against. So who knows?
For me, and this is purely speculative, if they do JDM Usman in Australia, I think that's in like February or March or something like that. If that fight happens, I think the loser would be a good one for Ian Garry.
Yeah, I guess you could justify. I wouldn't mind, because I still think I'm kind of done with the Usman thing, because my worry with doing Usman and Jack is it leaves the potential of wiping two pieces off the board, because Usman is not coming back into title contention, whatever way you want to look at it. He doesn't deserve to. He's too old now. He's lost to Leon twice. You can't really bring him back. I know styles make fights and all that, but nobody wants to see him back in contention again. And I think potentially putting him in there with Madalena, who has a particular bad proclivity for getting taken down and controlled on the ground, I think that could be a very bad matchup for him. And like looking at Jack Madalena, he's somebody that you kind of need there as somebody that could step in if something goes wrong, because his stock is still very, very high. Obviously, he's coming off a very bad injury as well. My worry with pairing him with Usman is that I wouldn't be shocked if Usman beat him.
Yeah.
and took him out of it, and it doesn't do anything for anyone. You're basically, again, you're gambling with Jack for no reason at this point. Like with Usman, I'd rather see him against somebody like a Garry to see if Garry could, like, you know, like, I wouldn't mind seeing that, because it kind of,
I will say, speaking on Usman, Sniff had a really good idea. Like, I would rather see Usman back at 185. Just do something different, because I feel like him at 170 kind of clogs it up, because he got his legacy, and then there's the I deserve factor and all that stuff. I think at 185 he can do some legacy fights, and that Usman Whitaker fight is a legacy type of fight for both of them.
And that so-called loss that he shouldn't have really had as a loss against Khamzat looks fantastic right now.
It does. Go out there and make
like,
a run.
if people are talking about Khamzat should probably beat DDP and he's next in line, most of us who know, we saw the Usman fight and we're like, he at least drew that fight in most people's opinion. Probably even won it, because I didn't see the first round. I thought that was the softest 10-8 I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't
for the first round. And if you take that away, he won the fight. You know, it's crazy. So sticking him up at middleweight is not a bad shout at all. I love that. I don't want Usman hanging around in the welterweight picture at all. I don't think it does anything for anyone. I think we've got enough. I think welterweight is stacked enough. We don't need Usman coming in and fucking it up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not down for that. But in terms of with Garry, I mean, there's loads of things you could do with him. Like, if Colby gets a win against Buckley, you could still do that. I think that could be interesting from, like, just the, you know, the presses alone would be hilarious. Like, I would enjoy it for that. The build up. There's loads of things you can do with Garry. Yeah. Like, you could do Jack Madalena somewhere down the line if things shake out that way. And you can't. I would like that, because Gary's stock is high. People obviously know how good he is. If it seems like the title fight's we're gonna take a long time to get, there's no harm in doing Ian Garry and Jack in the meantime, because you got two youngish guys that if one of them wins, one of them wins, one of them loses, which is obviously what the whole thing is about. You're pushing them into a deserving situation where then they can easily step in and be the next guy to fight the winner. So you're kind of setting things up. Whereas throwing Usman in there and he wins, just, it's like, oh fuck, we're gonna get to see fucking Usman versus the winner of. Imagine we end up with. The reason why I'm scared is we could end up with Usman versus Bilal, which would just, no one wants to see that shit.
Nah.
So,
nah.
I'm trying to eliminate any possibility of that. And welterweights, as JPL said, welterweight is already stacked as fuck.
Yeah, because I mean, dude, we got Morales, Prates, freaking what's the one grappler that just beat Gilbert Burns?
Sean Brady.
Brady, like it's a bunch of guys ready at welterweight.
True.
Yeah, so I mean, I thought it was an enjoyable match. I liked it. One thing we didn't talk about this, but because a lot of the chat seemed to be directing the chat in this direction, or we might as well talk about Evloev and Sterling. A lot of people seem to be talking about that. So pretty much similar structure. What did you think of that fight, and what do you do with both of those gentlemen moving forward?
Go ahead, Jax. I'll let you have this one.
I mean, I thought it was surprisingly entertaining.
Yes.
First of all, Movsar Evloev looked amazing as far as like his physique. Like, he looks like legit carved out of stone. It was crazy how he looked. And you know, obviously Aljo looks like Aljo. That's what he always looks like. But I mean, the grappling exchanges were so high level. But you know, I see a lot of people saying in the chat, you know, asking like, how do you think it went? I mean, I thought it was pretty clearly Movsar won it. Even though Aljo did prove me wrong in certain instances, that my concern about him was the same concern I had for Davison Figueiredo, that once you get to a certain level in the division, that size differential is going to start to make a difference. When you're fighting the people lower down, your championship pedigree, how good you actually are from a skills standpoint, is going to overcome that size difference. But like when he gets up there, you know, it's going to be a problem. And in certain aspects of this fight, I saw Mavzar's, he's just a bigger dude, man. He's just a bigger dude than you, bigger and stronger. Not by a lot, but by enough. And Mavzar continues to be somebody who is under the radar, a little bit disrespected. But I mean, I think you got to give him something interesting. The dude he doesn't get any finishes, but he keeps winning. Keeps on winning, and they're not all boring wins. He's not just it's not John Fitch.
No,
it's different. So I think you got to give him something interesting after this. I haven't looked at the division. I will while y'all talk about it, but I think you have to give him something interesting after this. Not Diego though. That's not the one I'll give.
Man, I thoroughly enjoyed the fight, man. Like I like seeing when two good grapplers like go at it and they just mixing it up and just the scrambles and they go from position to position. You think one guy's in control and then the other guy pulls some out. Like I like seeing that. I'm kind of with you though as far as his next fight going forward. Being undefeated, like he does have Diego Lopez on that resume, even though Lopez almost won the fight. I don't know how you do something else besides a title fight for him. Even though he's not the exciting guy, the fighting style isn't exciting to most fans, but the guy could say, hey, I beat the number 2, 3 guy in the division already, and I'm undefeated. And I just beat a former champion moving up a weight class. Like, what else do I need to show, prove for me to get the title shot? Like, we need to replenish the featherweight division. Like, Ilya's already KO'd Volk, already KO'd Max. Like, let's throw some fresh meat in there. And who knows, like a fresh matchup, just like kind of with Khalil Roundtree with Alex, throw somebody fresh in there. We may get an even better fight.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly agree. And I agree with, this is weird, we're agreeing. Fuck.
It's so rare.
I hope this doesn't continue for too long because this
somebody clip it. Somebody clip this.
Yeah, this ain't gonna happen too often. I thoroughly enjoyed the fight, and it's one of those ones where I know a lot of people shit on grappling exchanges quite a lot, but this was an example of where when two guys are trying to not just grapple but do something with that grappling, like Sterling was clearly looking for the sub, whereas when Evloev was getting in positions, advantageous positions, he was looking to ground and pound and open things up that way. And what was very interesting to the fight about me, I thought Evloev clearly won, but there was a moment in the midpoint of the third round where first of all, it was clearly 1-1 for the first two. The third round was going to decide it. And Aljo was basically in control of the third round up until he lost position. Mm-hmm. And then, so it was as classically close as you can get between two grapplers. And it felt like a very fast-paced fight as well because of the way that they were both going for what their game plans were. And I have to say, I'm in full agreement with you. I think based on that, coming through that and showing that he can, go through the fire. And again, there was nothing boring about what he was trying to do. He was going for the finishes. I'm talking about Evloev on this side. I thought Aljo did a great job as well. And again, no stock lost for either man in this fight, which is always great to see. I would put Evloev in a fight with, I'd put him in a fight with Ilya as well. I don't want to, and we know they're not going to do that. They're going to do Volk and Ilya again.
Yep.
Which nobody wants to see that shit. I love Volk. I don't want to see that again. At least not for, I think Volk should get one more. And it's the issue of we want fresh matchups. I don't want all this talk of Ilya going to fight. That's why I hate the Ilya going to fight even Makhachev. I don't like it. Yeah. I don't like it. I know a lot of people do. I think he's too small. And he hasn't really done anything in his division yet. I know outside of Max and Volk, which are obviously amazing wins, there's guys in that division who are scary. I can see Evloev causing some potential problems. He's got a chin. His grappling is amazing. He's getting better every time. He's fucking strong as well.
Mm-hmm.
I
think Ilya beats him, but I can see an argument for doing that fight.
So let me ask you this, Frankie and Jax. What's outside of Max and Volk, who's Ilya's toughest fight at 145?
I mean, it's out of two people, and we've just talked about him. It's out of Diego. I mean, to me, it's out of Diego and Mavzar. Like, I feel that what the things that make Ilya good, Mavzar can make it interesting for him to use them. Mavzar can put pressure on him from a grappling standpoint to where he can't strike as freely as he wants to. Now, I'm not saying that I think that he beats Ilya, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible. And then for Diego, we got the power and the pressure of Diego. Not to mention he has that Brazilian jiu-jitsu in his bag that he can rely on if worse comes to worse. So I from what I just saw from Evloev and what I saw against him in who was Arnold Allen, like Mavzar, he might be able to get it done. He might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we're kind of on like similar lines. I think I would probably, the reason why I would probably go with, first of all, I think Ilya beats both of them, but I would have to say that probably Diego's probably the more dangerous just because he has that power factor. I think he's got that ability to just smash you out. Whereas what people don't know about Ilya, and this is going to shock some people, started out as a wrestler and his jiu-jitsu is crazy. And apparently he's in the wrestling game, he's as elite as it gets, and we haven't even had to see it yet. So I feel like if Evloev tries to play that game with him, he's going to get a nasty surprise. And I think Ilya is just way better in the stand-up than he is.
Yeah.
And certainly in terms of the boxing, we're talking about Ilya maybe being the best boxer in the UFC period, not just in the division.
Is that up for debate still, or is that like?
Some people say Jack, which I think I see very very strong similarities within the two of them, especially the way they manage distance and the way they work the body. I'm a big proponent for people who like throw dirty, meaty hooks to the body. I love that shit. But yeah, in terms of the stylistic matchup, I just think Diego Lopez just feels like a nightmare because he puts the pressure on, but he's also fucking massive and powerful as well.
He's big.
And again, if you get him to the ground, his jiu-jitsu is fucking crazy as well. So he creates problems in loads of different areas. I do think Ilya beats both of them, but
yeah, I definitely agree with both you guys. I kind of look at it like Diego is just, he's got that danger factor. Like he's got power in his hands and he's a finisher on the ground. But I think Mavzar just be the tougher matchup just because the guy just isn't going anywhere. Like, even if you give him some adversity in a fight, Mavzar is undefeated. And guys that are undefeated, they fight like it. Like they fight like they have that ultimate belief that they're gonna figure it out and they're gonna get the win. And then on top of it, I know a lot of people don't like this, but dude, the Russians, man, like those guys are.
I'm kind of over it now.
Like,
I'm not like, hey, it doesn't upset me anymore.
Hey, it is what it is, man. Those dudes, like, man, like they train for this their whole entire life, man. And those guys, they just go about it just a little bit differently than I think everybody else does. And I think all the world is still trying to catch up to them.
No, and it's good as well that we don't have Russians who are just coming or Dagestanis who are coming in and just like wrestling people to the ground and wet blanketing them. Yep. These guys can all, the new breed of Dagestanis, they can all strike as well. Like the Umars, the Usman and Bellator. Even like
Saeed Nurmagomedov.
Saeed Nurmagomedov is a very good striker. So it's one of those ones where it's like they can get it done in everywhere now. So it's like it's harder to hate. Where it's like when you see somebody going against your favorite fighter and they drag them to the ground and then start trying to shove their hand into their boxes and just like trying to juggle with their balls and just mess around like that, you're like, come on, man, just like this. It's not what I came here for. Whereas when that's why, again, if you look at the Umar performance against Sandhagen, I know we're going off on a bit of a tangent there. It showed you like what a full, well-rounded mixed martial artist can do. It's like negate the the takedowns, and then he can use his striking to set up that side of his game, and it just makes it more interesting, you know.
True.
And I think that's why I'm less of a hater now than I was. I still hate it, but like I'm more accepting of it. I'm in that stage of acceptance about what we get with those guys.
Yeah. One more thing on this. If Mavzar fought Ilia Topuria, and both of them are undefeated, you know, we heard all this in the lead up about Shavkhat and Ian being, you know, their combined record is the biggest undefeated record that anybody has had in the UFC since, what was it, Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya. That one would be bigger. That one would be bigger, and it would be for a belt, so they could play that angle if they want to.
Yeah, I think the people, as much as that is a massive factor, but I think if you polled every MMA fan tomorrow, the Diego Lopez fight would be just this what everyone would choose.
Absolutely.
And it's not fair on it, because Evlo has been, and again, a lot of people have said this in the chat, and I think it's rightfully said. His last 3 fights have not been boring. His fight against Allen was great. His last fight now against Aljo was fun. They made grappling look fun again and interesting again. His fight with Diego Lopez was fantastic as well.
It was.
So it's like, you can't say the guy's boring. It's just that he doesn't have the personality or the name, whereas Lopez has a mullet. Guys, he's got a fucking mullet. He throws down. So
I got some dynamite in those hands too.
Yep. He's just exciting. Like, so I think people would call for that. There's something about him that's just, he's got that it factor, whereas everywhere I've seen, it's like, oh, again, the region does hurt. It's like, oh, another Dagestani again, going to come in there and do this. But it's also the fact he just seems like a very, you know, bland sort of personality.
Yeah, you're right. Diego has that it factor, and Mavzar has that shit factor.
Yep.
But I think what's great is whichever one we get, I think it's going to be great.
Facts.
Yep.
And I'm not 100%. I think, like I said, I think Ilya would beat both of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if either man got it done against him. So it makes for that. It's not like, oh, this is going to be a whitewash, like it feels like when Makhachev fights anyone at lightweight. All right. So before we talk about, I feel a little bit bad bringing this up because this was the main event. I want to have a conversation about Pantoja. Now, obviously, he was very impressive against Kaya Sakura. He looked like, other than one knee up the middle that nearly caught him early on in the fight, he pretty much dominated. And I think we all said that we expected that. Well, to a certain extent. He then obviously called out Demetrius Johnson at the end, and which I thought was a very smart move, even though he's never going to get the fight. It brings in that conversation of who is the best flyweight. So first of all, I want you to just have I think his performance kind of stood for itself. But where do you think he stands in that flyweight best of all time conversation, seeing as he himself has said he sees DJ as number 1, he sees Cejudo as number 2, and he sees himself as number 3. How do you guys see it?
He said Cejudo is number 2? He said that? No, he's selling himself short, man. I think he's over Cejudo, man. I mean, and of course, you know, I have a video about the flyweights. And the fact that the problem is the fact that they have a dominant champion. And anytime there's a dominant champion in a division, the division seems a little lackluster or without direction. And he has dominated the division. He's beat everybody. Everyone. And in some cases, multiple times. Brandon Moreno, probably the most exciting and most known in the division. He's not above Pantoja because Pantoja beat him. You got Davison Figueiredo. He had all his situations with the very same person in Brandon Moreno. So I can't put him above Pantoja despite, you know, the things that he's done. Outside of that, Henry Cejudo didn't do enough in the division. He saved the division from a holistic standpoint, but we're talking about fighting and what they've done in the page. Pantoja is above him too. Now, Pantoja is nowhere near in the same stratosphere as Demetrius Johnson, but he's got a lock on number 2. Absolutely.
I'm going to come with a mad one here. I feel like it's going to surprise. Well, both of you know me and how I feel about Demetrius. I think if you're first of all, he's definitely ahead of Cejudo. I think like there's no doubts for me that at the very least Pantoja is the second best flyweight ever. Now, if you're comparing them skill for skill, I don't think anyone's better than Demetrius in any weight class ever. You know how highly I rate Demetrius as an actual talent. The fact that he did it clean, you know, I've got a video on my channel about it. If you want to see some serious glazing, go and check that shit out. Like it was wild. But what makes this interesting for me is I think if you actually, the one mark that we spoke about DJ having against him in the UFC was the quality of his CV. And I honestly think that if you got the figure that's around now, and if you had the figure that was around when he was champion, and you had the Moreno that's around now, even if you had the Brandon Royval that's around now, and he's operating in Demetrius's time, I think Demetrius has a lot harder time of it. There's a chance that he loses some of those fights, and you know how great I think he is. And Pantoja's pretty much beat all those guys. I know he lost to Figueiredo, which leads to potentially where things could be going, because it was something that I mentioned on when I was doing my live stream last night. Because Figgy's obviously in a very strange place. What do you do with him now? He's not going to get near the bantamweight title. Can he still make 125? I don't know. But there's a strong argument that Pantoja has the best ever flyweight CV in the UFC. I'm not saying he's the best flyweight ever, because it's very hard to make that argument. If you look at who he's beaten Brandon Royval twice. He's beaten Moreno 3 fucking times, bro. And we saw what Moreno just did to Albazi. Like Moreno, and I know Albazi's kind of dog shit, but Moreno for me is look at the fights that Moreno had with Figueiredo. Look at Figueiredo, what he was doing at flyweight. Like the fact that he had a close fight, it's mad. I think like CV wise, there's an argument that you can make the CV argument, you know, which is why it was such a clever, phony call out to me. Because as soon as he said it, I was like, first of all, I'm like, DJ's not coming back, and I'm like, no, DJ, and then I'm thinking, hang on a second, like, looking at who they fought, you can more than make that argument. I feel.
Yeah, no, I do. I believe that the competition holistically is probably better. Yes. Now, to old Black Betty's point,
I said this in my video as well. I talked about Prime Benavidez.
Yeah, Prime Benavidez
aging well as well.
Could have been champ. And John Dodson, that fight, the first one, was pretty crazy. So I mean, he fought some folks, but it's just not as deep. I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, and he didn't make the rounds the way that he needed to. I mean, but they made a whole show to try to find somebody.
Yeah.
And Brandon Moreno was on that show.
And by the way, I'm not saying that DJ CV is bad, because it was one thing I said in the DJ GOAT video that I made after he retired. I think his CV is very underrated, but the point that I'm making is that the Moreno that we have had in the last few years, and the Figgy we had before he walked out of the division, and the Brandon Royval that we've got now, they make that division a whole. I'm saying that I feel that Pantoja has had to go through way more fire in terms of high quality opposition, and that he doesn't get anywhere near the respect, which is why I kind of liked the bullshit call out as well, because it's getting people to have this conversation and think about it. Like, where does he rank? Yeah. Cejudo ain't anywhere near it, by the way. I mean, for the same reasons, like.
Here's the question. Here's additional question for y'all. So if Mighty Mouse is 1, Pantoja's 2, who's 3?
I don't hate the suggestion that some people are saying. I would probably have Moreno 3rd. Moreno for me is and even Figgy is 4th. Some people might have Figgy there. So I think Moreno in terms of like skill set and the fights that he's had at flyweight have been unbelievable. It's like, oh my, every time he goes in there, it's a fucking masterclass. It's a war, like one way or the other. Like I cannot remember a shit Brandon Moreno fight, like ever. And he fights the right way. So if you're talking about well-rounded people, that everyone talks about that in flyweight all the time. There was a time when even after Pantoja had beat him twice, I still considered Moreno to be number one. And even in that third fight, I mean, Pantoja won the fight, but again, razor close in terms of the margins were crazy. So I'd have him third. I don't know about you guys, Phil.
Two-time champion. I mean, I like it, honestly. I do. It's definitely kind of tough because, I mean, it's splitting hairs between him, Figgy, and then Cejudo. But just like you said, man, the argument you made, like, you can't really refute any of that. Like, but what's wild is that Pantoja has beat him 3 times. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'd have him 3 too. I'd have him at 3. I mean,
I get what Betty's saying as well about the bad performance against Royval, but if you consider the amount of activity he had and how many wars he'd had leading up to that fight, it wasn't. He was one fighter that really needed some time off.
Yeah,
and the fact that he was gone for 7 months or whatever it was, and then he comes back and then does what he again. Albazi's not that great, but he looked better than ever in that fight. So yeah, I mean, again, this is a very subjective thing, but I think with Cejudo again, Cejudo's more of a conversation you have in terms of combat sports in general, because you're like, right, he did it at the Olympics. He's a 2-weight world champion. But in terms of, you wouldn't say Cejudo is one of the best wrestlers ever. No, you wouldn't say Cejudo is one of the best flyweights ever, and you can't say he's one of the best bantamweights ever either.
Nope.
But in terms of overall achievements, you're like, yeah, what he did was remarkable, and is probably no one's going to repeat. Very similar in a way to that we got with Alex Pereira. He's kind of at that. He's more in that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But in terms of flyweights, yeah, I think that those 3 are fairly. And people like, again, I get the recency bias thing as well. Figueiredo was a nasty motherfucker as well when he was around for a while. Like,
shit, he's still nasty right now at bantamweight.
Still nasty, yeah, he is. So yeah, in terms of like moving for Pantoja, again, it's a difficult one because he's cleaned out the entire division. He's clocked flyweight. He basically retired the division in terms of, this is truly it. If this was fair, if he was a bigger name, Pantoja would be getting to fight the bantamweight champion now. But because the bantamweight champion is the bantamweight division is such a clusterfuck anyway, and we've got some clear contenders emerging there, you can't do that with him. So yeah, it's like, what do you do with him next? I think like, and I'm like, while JPL brings this up, in terms of Asakura, what did you think of him, and how well do you think he could do, obviously outside of that title scene?
I like Asakura, man. I'm gonna be honest, man. I like the eyeballs he brings to the sport. Brings a whole continent with him. I just was seeing on Twitter like yesterday and today, they talking about all these other guys over there in Rising that need to come to the UFC next, and I think it's only great, really. But being the UFC, he's been in the octagon now, and I think getting his feet wet over here is a little different. I think it probably is going to rejuvenate him. It's going to make him more hungry and want to compete even more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was the danger factor that he posed because he has that one punch knockout power. You knew for as long as it lasted that there was a chance that something magical could happen for him. But for the same reasons, man, I think that bringing all of those eyeballs from over there, it just makes it more interesting. And for it, a smaller division, and me and Frankie talked about it on a video that I got coming out, for that smaller division, the smaller divisions are going to have more Asian people starting to really make moves, and we're already seeing it. We see Tatsuro Taira, just sliding up the rankings really fast. So we're going to see more of that, with road to the FC and all those things. So I think it's a great door that he opened, even in a losing fashion, for not only Ryzen but also that area of the world to start making more of an impact in the UFC. And Dana at the press conference said that he's very open to more Ryzen champs coming over to fight. So that's
He seemed to have established a good relationship with them as well.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to use like Ryzen footage and shit as well. I think that's a factor that people are overlooking as well. You don't usually see that.
Yeah, the fact that when Bruce Buffer announced him, he said 2-time Ryzen champ. Like like Dana got to sign off on that if you mention.
Yeah.
So like he's cool with it. So I mean, it's a different thing, man. It's a very different thing for the UFC and for Dana. So I like the door that he just opened, even in getting smashed like he just did.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a disappointing performance. And like obviously we saw he got outclassed, but I think there were like mitigating factors. Like obviously coming from Ryzen, making that adjustment to the skill set that he's allowed to display in Ryzen with the soccer kicks and the elbows and the stuff like that would have been. There were times when he might have been second guessing himself. There's also the fact as well that he's never fought professionally in a cage, which I know sounds like a mad thing to say, but that must be a very sort of, that's something you've obviously got to adjust to as well in terms of and getting thrust into a title fight with a guy like Pantoja, who is fucking elite in every regard, is a tough. That's beyond the baptism of fire. I can't remember a situation where somebody has been thrown into for a first fight to be thrown into something. I mean, you'd have to go way back to find something so high stakes and so dangerous. So I think he accounted himself very well, but I feel that with his skill set and the fact that I think he's going to do very well outside of like the top 3. But I think if he comes against a Moreno or a Royval, and obviously we've seen what happened with Pantoja, I don't give him much of a great chance. I don't give him much of a great chance against those 3 as of now. What the UFC needs to do is reassess of him, because he brings a lot of eyeballs to the sport. Get him in there with somebody who's going to throw down with him a little bit and build him up again and get him used to the environment in terms of with the cage and what, the rule set is and all that. And then maybe you can build up back towards, because he's not ridiculously old. I think he's 31? Something like that.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
He's got there's some time to work with him, and it was very clear that people were interested in this. There's definitely some potential there, but I think, yeah, I do like him. I think he brings excitement. He's very big for the division as well. I hope he doesn't make the mistake of thinking, oh, do you know what? I'll go up to bantamweight now, because he'll get fucking murdered up there.
Ooh, don't do that.
Mm-mm.
Don't do that.
He will die.
Oh my God. He'd be out of the UFC as quickly as he came in.
Yeah. There was one quick thing. Before we talk about 1 or 2 more fights because I want to talk about Gane and Volkov kind of to close things out. But before we get into that one, we obviously had a couple of fights announced as well. We had obviously we've got DDP and Strickland 2, and we've got Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. So I want to know.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got some fucking thoughts about that one.
I've been waiting on this one. As soon as it got announced, I told CJ, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. So we got.
I wasn't going to talk about it. I'm like, yeah. What do you guys reckon?
Well, Tatiana Suarez is out of her hibernation, and I mean, if she comes and she's not hurt, I think it's going to be very interesting, because we saw the size of Yan Xiaonan when she was doing well before she got beat twice in the same fight. The size did make a difference for her, and Tatiana Suarez is very big for that division.
Mm-hmm.
And if she gets a hold of her, I think it's going to be a very interesting and very long night for Zhang Weili. Not saying that Zhang Weili can't win this fight, because she absolutely can. She's an all-time great. But man, I'm telling you now, like, I'm probably going to bet on Tatiana Suarez.
Yeah, what do you reckon?
For me, I knew when that fight got announced, Jax was gonna be all over it. I know he's a big Tatiana Suarez guy over there. I already knew it. But for me, I definitely think that fight's gonna be very good. I think Zhang Weili is definitely gonna be prepared though. Like she's gonna know what the game plan is from Tatiana. So definitely that takedown defense is gonna be pretty much what she's going to be training pretty much all the camp and surviving on the ground. On the feet, though, I think the gap in skill is bigger on the feet than it is with Tatiana Suarez's wrestling and Weili's wrestling. So I just see Weili just piecing her up on the feet. And, like if I look at it like this, if Weili makes it out of the first round, defends like 1 or 2 takedown attempts, and then starts touching Tatiana, I think it's just going to be an avalanche downhill. Because once Tatiana gets a little fatigued and now those shots are a little more labored, Weili's just going to light her up on the feet.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I hate that this fight is fucking happening. I'm really angry. Tatiana Suarez has this is the issue I have here. She's fought, I think, twice in 5 years. That's a big problem to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's hanging dog as well. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's fair.
Ask Patchy and see what's up.
Patchy looks like he might be into it. I'm going to get to that. Looks like a bit of a freak. But, like, we all knew it was coming. There's not much. I don't think it should just be a case of, because there's not many options for her, somebody who hasn't fought or been active should just get it. That bothers me. And what bothers me is that I think she might actually beat her as well. I'm kind of with Jax on that as well. I think she's so big, and that and what worried me is watching the fact that Weili got dominated so easily in the grappling against, or not dominated, but there were moments when Zhao Nan was able to get her down and keep her down. I'm like, she can do that to her.
Mm-hmm.
Tatiana Suarez, I think she might. I'm kind of expecting that. I'm expecting Tatiana Suarez to win. I don't think she'll finish her. I just think she'll, spend a lot of time on top of her, and I don't expect it. I don't expect it to be the most exciting fight of all time. But that's where I'm kind of leaning, and then I think we'll get the fight again. And part of it as well is that Weili's been a champion for so long. There's always that hunger factor that always worries me.
Yeah.
And I think Tatiana coming in as like a fresh contender and obviously having all the time off in the world. I mean, goddamn, she must be coming in there fresh. So, I mean, Weili hasn't exactly been the most active either. So, I don't hate it, but it's happening. And I think my at the moment, even though I think Weili's way more generally skilled, I think she's going to be too small. And yeah, so DDP and Strickland.
Man, you know what was funny about the announcement of that? They go to the desk and you got 3 guys sitting there and they were talking about how close that fight was. And I did a rewatch of it. The rounds weren't blowouts, but as far as the number of rounds won, from my perspective, from me watching it, it wasn't close. And I don't think that things are going to change a ton. I don't. I mean, and I'm not a DDP fan per se. He's weird, but he's good, man. The dude is just good. And I feel like his style of fighting just goes well with what Sean Strickland does. And I know that Sean Strickland is one of your favorite fighters, crossover. I know that. But I just don't see this fight going any different. And I'm glad they're making it because I feel like it's something that they needed to do just to get it over with. But I don't think the fight's going to go any different. I really don't.
I'm just going to say it. I don't like the fight. I don't like the fight at all. Hamzat should have got the fight. Would have been way more interesting, way more fun, would have brought way more eyeballs, but it is what it is. I think DDP goes through Strickland, and I don't think the fight's going to be as good as the first one was. I think fighting Strickland and his style, like it takes a little bit for guys to get used to it because it's so unique and it's so different. And now that DDP's been in there for 5 rounds, I think DDP just gonna go after him and is not gonna have any fear of the jab or Strickland's power. But it is what it is, man. Like Strickland style, man. I'm gonna be honest. It's painful for me to watch, man. I am not a fan of Sean Strickland, though. I will be honest.
You don't like Teeps?
Teeps to the body and the jabs, bro. It just does something to me, man. It just irritates me, man.
Yeah, I'm all right with this. I'm glad we're back, man. I'm back to disagreeing, man. I'm good. I think it's the right thing to make. I think the fight was that close and that divisive that they would have been doing Strickland dirty not to give him the fight again, especially as well as, first of all, the fight was razor close, but also he then stepped in to fight Paulo Costa on short notice and did it for very little money as well. I think he got 120 and 120 for that, which was, and I think he was, again, whether you agree with it or not, he was promised if he took that fight that he was going to get the shot. That's one side of it. I know that, and it was a great fight. Let's remember that as well. It was a great scrap. Also, as well, I know you love Khamzat Cross. I'm not. I was very convinced, obviously, with the performance by Whitaker, you couldn't not be. But I still need to see that he, first of all, can stay healthy and not pull out. And I don't like the fact that there's still this dodgy thing standing over with him of can he fight in America as well? Because I don't want somebody who's going to be like an inactive, somebody, first of all, pull outs when he's supposed to fight in regions that he's been given preferential treatment for. And then he's pulling out at them fights as well that are only on once or twice a year. It concerns me. And I don't think he should just be gift wrapped a title fight for that after being given so many chances to get things right. So I think the fight is fair. I do agree with both of you, though, that I think that the issue that I have with Strickland is he's probably not going to make any adjustments. Strickland is going to fight the same way that Strickland always does.
Yep.
And Dricus might be a goofy son of a bitch, and he is. They game plan quite well in that team. And we saw in the Izzy fight, as goofy as it was, there was a game plan there of what he wanted to do, and he implemented it very well. And I expect the same. I think he's going to finish. I think he's going to finish Sean Strickland this time, and I think it will be much more impressive. And then you're going to get your wish. Khamzat won't have to do anything. He'll just be able to sit there.
I gotta say it. Nothing. How do you get a title fight off of beating Paulo Costa, bro? The guy has not beaten anybody in the UFC that's even in the UFC. There's no wins over anybody.
I agree, but it was the closeness of the fight with DDP. It's the closest fight that DDP's ever had. A lot of people still think Strickland won that fight. And also, again, he stepped in against Paulo Costa at short notice to save a card. And I think that should mean something. At the end of the day, if it was him just fighting Costa, and that's not enough, but clearly we know how the UFC are in general. They must have clearly said to him, look, if you do this for us, we will do this for you. And if they turn around and give I know Khamzat destroyed Whitaker, whatever. This guy has pulled out multiple times. There's dodgy stuff going on with him with his visa issues and all that kind of stuff. It sets a bad precedent again to say, do you know what? That guy deserves the title shot after everything that he, more importantly, hasn't done than done. And again, it's the only ranked middleweight. Whitaker is the only ranked middleweight that Khamzat Chimaev has beaten.
True.
The only.
True.
And again, it just sets a bad, you can do what you want, and as long as you've got a name, we'll slide you in. And I think the UFC needs to get into more of a position where if they make a promise, they need to stick to it. It can't be one of those things where it's like, oh, right, well, the other guys, somebody's, I don't like that. I don't like the way that goes down. And I don't know. I think it's more to do with the closeness of the fight for me that makes him more deserving than Khamzat at this point.
So I got another little pushback for you. So just how you said Khamzat pulls out of fights, right? Mm-hmm. He just fight. Go ahead and book another one. If we go ahead and just book another fight, we don't have to have all this waiting.
Can I say something as well? The reason why I think that Strickland's getting the fight is because I reckon Khamzat's probably not ready for when they want to do it. I'm gonna put that out there as well, because either he can't fight where they want him to fight, or He doesn't. It's not like he's got a very long history of being active now. Recently,
True.
I reckon it's more to do with that, because I honestly think the UFC, knowing the way they operate, if Khamzat was saying, "All right, I can go in March or whenever the fight," when is it? February,
I think.
February.
and it's in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I guarantee you, if Khamzat said he could have gone there, they would have put him there. They would have put him in. I think people are making it a case of, oh, they've put Sean over Khamzat. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's just Dricus is saying he wants to fight again now. He wants to do it sooner rather than later. He wants to be active. Khamzat's probably not ready for February. Strickland's been waiting, and he was promised it. And it was a great fight, and it was a close fight.
Yeah.
He did them a favor.
I agree. They
you
did do them a favor. And now, while I would rather see the Khamzat fight, for all the reasons that you said, like, I understand why Strickland is getting a fight, and I'm not mad at it. And maybe he does something different. Maybe, I doubt it, but maybe he does. But it was a good fight, and he made DDP show us something different. He made DDP dig a little bit deeper to show us something different, and maybe that's something that he'll do again. So, and for some reason, Sean Strickland is big down there.
True.
Pretty popular.
I got something else though. Trump got elected. When the man get in office, he can get Khamzat in the country.
Probably so. Probably.
Dana White make the call like, "Hey, we need Khamzat in the country." Trump can get it done. I'm just
ain't nothing but a text. Ain't nothing but a text.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
That's a good point. I think it as well. It makes, to bring up Jack Della Maddalena again, it kind of makes it. He's not on that. He hasn't been announced to be on that card, right?
Right.
So that injury must be more serious than we obviously thought. Like the fact that he's not being booked against anyone either. Or they must have plans or something for him further down the line, because surely he'd be on that Australia card. And surely he'd be very high up the card as well. And the fact that that card's looking pretty stacked already, I don't know if there's space on there for Jack. So that certainly asks more questions in terms of what's going on at welterweight as well.
Who you think is gonna headline the Australia card?
It's got to be that one, right?
I forgot what's on it now for some reason. I've lost my chain of thought. Hang on.
I mean,
I don't think they've just come out and said this is the headliner. Oh no! It is DDP.
Oh, it's the main
event.
event.
I'm tripping.
Oh, yes,
I'm tripping. That's my bad. That's my bad. I'm tripping. I'm tripping.
Because it's only that and Weili, and I guess you could put Jack Maddalena as the feature fight.
Yeah, good.
Could do him and Manu saying Brady. I don't hate that. I mean, Brady doesn't really deserve
Brady's kind of earned it a little bit.
I don't think he deserves it. I don't think so. But it gives somebody again, because JDM, the question mark about him is, can he deal with the takedown stuff? And it would again answer that question again.
I'm gonna throw a name
I don't
out
hate
there.
it.
Carlos Prates says he wants to fight in Australia.
Carlos Prates said he would. He was putting his hand in the air to fight Rakhmonov last weekend.
Man, Carlos need to make sure that his foot is healthy before he do anything.
I love it though. I love the energy.
I do. I like it, but don't go out there messing up the bag. Trying to hurry up. Make sure you're healthy.
It would have been a fight between two cripples, isn't it?
Yeah, it would have been.
Both just like hobbling around, and
it would have been.
Man, y'all see that message that just came up in the chat talking about JDM?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, I know about the infection. I didn't know that it was, but again, it shows the fact that he's not. I still think there's obviously going to be a lot more added to that 312 card, and you would assume that Jack is going to be in consideration. But yeah, it's a wild one, man. I don't know. And again, it's more the welterweight pitch has suddenly become a bit more cloudy now. I wouldn't mind seeing him and Usman, but I know I just said it's bad. But like the way things are shaping up, I don't know, man. Who else is there? Garry? Gary's not going to turn over in Australia, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Because he's saying he's not ready for March against Leon. That's a mad one. Maybe it's just that. Brian Battle
JDM Leon in March.
I'd love that. But would JDM be willing to come over to London like that after missing out on Australia like a couple of weeks before. I don't know.
If he's
I
healthy,
think JDM's down to fight whoever. I think that's the type of dude JDM is.
Yeah.
I think we need to see him back sooner rather than later, though. But I'd rather wait if it means that we're gonna, I'd rather have him back at 100% because we need welterweight is amazing at the moment, and I don't want to fuck him up by bringing him back early and then he ends up losing to somebody that he shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd rather wait. I'm all about.
Where's Michael Morales ranked?
14, I think.
Oh, okay. He's too
no,
low.
12.
Okay. Yeah, he's too low still.
Well, you could do Michael Morales in prize.
You could.
Nah, I say we hold off on that. I say we hold off on that.
Yeah, that's this.
Yeah, let's keep that in the oven for a little bit. Let that marinate a little bit right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, welterweight is certainly one that I'm the least concerned about. I think it's as a division, it's kind of, it feels like things are where they should be.
Yeah.
And now they just got to make sure that they set things up really nicely in the meantime. Prates versus Battle.
That's a bloodbath.
Battle apparently called him out.
He did.
A bloodbath right there.
I tell you what, I don't hate that because I think Battle's obviously thinking Battle's won how many fights in a row at welterweight and he's still not ranked. He's probably thinking, "Fuck this! If I call out Prates and beat him, there's things I can maybe exploit there. It might be his fastest track to getting into the rankings.
It would be, but why would he fight? Why would Prates fight him?
Maybe because he thinks it's an easy fight. It's another easier layup, potentially.
What y'all think of what Anakin said with Battle and Chaos Williams?
Battle would murder him. Chaos Williams is dog shit.
He's exciting, but he ain't.
He's not well right. Yeah. Battle would grind his ass out.
Yeah, the skills
Battle's
not there.
got a chin, and he's like, Battle's nasty, man. I like him a lot. Battle to me is like a discount. I know it's a weird comparison. I get fluffy vibes off him. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it's just sort of smothering, tough to break down, in your face all the time. He can adjust things on the fly and sort of, again, he's a grinder.
Yeah.
I think he's really good.
Yeah. Since Battle moved to welterweight, he's only lost the unanimous decision to Fakhretdinov.
And Fakhretdinov whooped his ass, which doesn't look that good. It could have been a case of adjustments making the weight and all that kind of stuff. There's excuses you can make because he's looked unbelievable since then. I thought he was very clearly the winner against Randy Brown. He's fucking dangerous. But yeah. I think I agree. I think Prates would, the way that Prates is looking. There were a few times when Randy Brown caught Battle when I was thinking, if Prates does this to you, you're fucking done, mate.
Outside smoking a cigarette. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Gonna be like Themba Garimbo waking up seeing two guys saying, "Hey, just stay down, stay down."
Oh man! By the way, yeah, we're not gonna talk about this yet. I need my flowers, bro, for that Themba Garimbo thing because I've been saying, I said that Luque was gonna win, and I got like mocked badly for that.
Good call.
He was on the ground,
bruh, and they hyped Themba Garimbo up so much on Embedded, like there was so much devoted to him. And just showing his personality, and there was way more seeing him in Embedded than you did in the Octagon. That's for sure.
Yeah, and how I feel about scrubs who take handouts, Jax. I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah,
get a fucking job. Work for that check. I don't like handouts.
Yeah, but you did get a whole house.
Got a whole house. Yeah. Where's my house? Do you know what I mean? No, wait. No, never mind. I don't like it. I don't know. But all jokes aside about all that, I never thought he was that good. And Luque, it's nice to see Luque back. And I think people suggesting like Luque maybe getting Masvidal, I don't think that's terrible because I still think Luque
makes sense.
It makes sense because like Luque is still not the Luque that we knew, and there's a worry there that and Masvidal's obviously been out of the game for a while. I don't hate it.
I'm gonna be honest, though. I'm afraid to see Luke get hit, bro. I'm just gonna be honest, dog. Like
But this Masvidal though, I'm not that scared about that.
I'm just saying in general.
Still crack. It's just it ain't as fast as it was.
True.
Still
True.
hurt
He
him.
definitely ain't as fast.
But he could hurt him. He could hurt him.
Yeah, I'm not into. I see what we will close on talking about Colby and Buckley, but just to keep on the we need to talk about the feature fight. Was it the feature fight? It was the feature fight.
Gane Volkov.
Gane and Volkov. We need to have this discussion. I know this has been, but I feel like we need to get our opportunity to vent.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, guys?
Robbery. Clear robbery.
I don't just think this was a robbery. Yeah, I think this is one of the worst robberies ever. I rank this alongside the Cara France and Albazi robbery. I felt like it was that clear. And the reason why I know it was bad, I didn't have any money on this, and I was fucking pissed. Like I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a disgrace. And what I hate about it the most is like the UFC are acting like they're coming out like Dana said it. The judging was bad. I thought Volkov won, but then they're still gonna fucking give Gane a title fight. They're gonna be like, oh well, he didn't win. Here's your fucking Tom fight or your. That's what bothers me about the entire thing.
Gane gonna be out for a while. He broke like 3 toes.
Yeah, he broke
Fuck him, man.
toes. So here's okay. Let's break this down. All right, who won round 1?
I gave it to Gane. I gave Gane round 1.
Round 1 was the closest round, I think, in my opinion.
So did you think that?
I thought maybe Gane won it. I'm not angry about Gane winning it, but I thought Volkov clearly won the rounds 2 and 3.
Okay, so I had Gane winning round 1. Round 2, who did y'all have winning that one? You had Volkov, right?
Yeah, I had Volkov.
Yeah, that's who I had too.
I had Volkov round 2, and I also had Volkov round 3.
Same.
So Volkov should have won the fight.
Yep.
It was more of what I know. It wasn't like I know Volkov didn't destroy him, but you know, one of those fights where it's like it's a close fight, but it's a clear fight. That's what it felt like. I felt like there's no fucking way that you could give that fight to Gane. There's no way. I just don't understand. It just angers me. And again, it's like, again, I had no skin. And the thing is, it's terrible. It's really harsh on Volkov, who's gone on a 4-fight winning streak. He's on the verge of a title fight again, or being up there again. He clearly wins against the guy who destroyed him in their first fight. Like clearly saw it. I will say this though, and a lot of people, I actually thought the performance from Gane was actually very good. In that, I thought he lost the fight, but what impressed me about it, I thought his wrestling was. He got Volkov down a couple of times. I was quite impressed with that, and I thought his defense on the ground was actually very good as well. If you look at the Gane that was so easily destroyed by Jones down there, and to see what he was able to do against Volkov, who's been steamrolling people in that way, I was impressed with the fact that he showed some new wrinkles to his game. But I thought he very fucking clearly lost that fight, and it's left heavyweight in a real stinky situation again now.
It did. So like, this is the way that I saw it. I saw it as like, I thought that Volkov won the fight, but I didn't think it was a robbery. I thought it was a close fight. I thought the round 2 was close, even though I scored it for Volkov. But it was more so, like you said, it was the opportunity lost. That's where the robbery came in. You robbed, and I'm not saying that Gane robbed him, because Gane didn't say who won. He didn't write anything down on any scorecards. And as a matter of fact, he thought he lost 2.
Did he say that?
His body language. His body language. You could tell he was like, I didn't win.
Immediately and had to get dragged back in, which I thought was interesting.
I'm not mad at Gane at all. I'm not mad at him at all. Yes, I need, like, going back to the circumstance that he had with Tom and what he did there. Yeah, that left a terrible taste in my mouth about the way that he acts. But when it comes to this fight here, he didn't make the decision on who won. He fought. He was hurt. They said who won. All he did was, yeah, okay, I guess I won, and left. That's it. But the robbery is Volkov, the opportunity that was lost. But Dana said that he was going to make it right for him.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Promises again.
Whatever.
So we'll see what goes. But it's the judges who we should all be upset with.
Well, it was a judge that really ultimately fucked it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, man, top 5 matchups should always be 5 rounds,
bruh. I'm telling you,
like how is this not a thing, bro? Like, this is a potential number 1 contender fight. This should automatically be a 5-round fight.
Should always be 5 rounds. Always.
And there was no reason to not do it as well, because we had they did it for the co-main.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we could have stuck around for another 10 minutes, 11 minutes, the one in between. We'd been all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I feel more sorry for Volkov than anything else. I mean, I don't really. I've always been a great believer that I don't see Gane as a threat to Tom Aspinall anyway. I know it's a fight that you're interested in, Jax.
I want to see it because of how he moves, in comparison to how Tom moves. But the Cyril Gane that I just saw in that fight, I don't want to see him again.
Tom Aspinall. Yeah, I think he'd destroy him.
Yeah, I don't want to see that guy.
Yeah.
But the one that fought Tai Tuivasa, I'd like to see that Cyril Gane against Tom Aspinall.
Yeah. It's just no one benefits from it, and that's the sad thing. It was I was hoping we would get conclusive. All right, we've got another. If Gane goes out there and looks amazing, kills him, or vice versa, if Volkov goes and does it, you're like, wow, maybe Volkov has learned and can do better against Tom next time. Maybe Gane is a legitimate threat against Tom, and it felt like, nah, Volkov's better than Gane. Volkov got destroyed by Tom. What's the point in this anymore?
Yeah,
and it just puts all the power back in John Jones's hand again, which is probably what I'm the most angry about.
It does, don't it?
It does.
Yeah. I mean, and that was my problem. That was one of my, issues with the card. It was just, it left me inconclusive when it comes to those situations. And that kind of sucked.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So before we close things out, we might as well have a brief talk about next week's main event. Because I mean, the rest of the card doesn't really do much for me. There's some nice fights up and down it that that should be interesting, but we can maybe get into that later on in the week. So just early thoughts on what you think is gonna, or how you think the Colby and Buckley fight is gonna transpire. What do you reckon?
You got it, Jax.
Man, I think if the same Colby that came in against Leon shows up, Buckley gets him out of there. And I pray that that's the same guy. I pray that that's the one that shows up, because it just, we need a refresher up there at the top. And Buckley seems, he's already gotten one person out in Wonder Boy, out of that top 5-6 range. Go ahead and get another one out in Colby, who I don't even know, does he still like fighting? I don't even know if he does or not. But I think Buckley gets him out of there, man. I really do.
I'm right there with you, brother. And I truly hope Buckley gets him out of there. Brutally. Brutally. Because I think Kobe's what, 30, 37 or something like that now.
Yeah, he's getting on a bit.
It's about time. I mean, the guy we saw at 296 against Leon, that guy was a shell of Colby Covington.
Mm-hmm.
And Father Time's undefeated, and Buckley's been on a roll, dude. And I think him being down at 170 from 185 and bringing that natural strength from those 15 extra pounds gonna serve him well in that Colby matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to this fight, you're gonna get a different answer from me pretty much every time you speak to me. I'm genuinely because it's I've put my trust in Colby multiple times, and he's both impressed me and let me down in equal portions. I'll put it that way. Again, it comes down, it's what you said. If we get the Colby that fought Usman twice, it could be a big problem for Buckley in it being a 5-rounder. And the thing is with Colby is he is extremely durable. He's quite hard to get out of there. And I think in terms of a cardio perspective, I would give Colby the edge with that. But it's hard to see against the way Buckley's been looking, and you know I'm a very big Buckley fan as well. I have been for a long time. Massive guy at welterweight.
Yeah.
Power in his hands, can obviously wrestle really, really well. And I don't think Colby is. I know Colby's he's a good wrestler, but I don't think he's devastating with it in the sense of like he doesn't really do that much with it. It's more for a pressure thing. He kind of uses it as a threat to then volume strike against people. And I think it's not going to work against Buckley because Buckley's not going to be worried about being taken down because I think he's strong. He knows he's going to be strong enough to fend it off. And I think he's got enough dynamite in his hands to know that if it's standing, there's a good chance I could catch you. And he's had his jaw broke before.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a good fight. And I'm glad that it's, in a weird way, it's a nice fight to close out the year, considering it's a fight night and not a numbered card. And I like the fact that we're seeing Colby fight again. I think it's a good test for Buckley to see where he's really at. I can see it. This is going to sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but it's either going to be a Colby decision or a Buckley finishes him brutally in the midpoint of the fight.
Yeah.
I would love that. Would absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
by the way, there are some good fights on this card. Or good fighters, shall I say. Not necessarily good fights, but good fighters. Sean Woodson, Adrian Yanez, Michael Johnson, who else? Billy Q and Cub Swanson should be interesting.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Drakkar Klose is on the card. Like, they've got some people on the card.
Who's Drakkar fighting again? He's got a tough fight, doesn't he, Drakkar?
Yeah.
Joel Alvarez.
Ooh,
bro, how is that not on the main card?
It should be.
A tough one.
It should be.
Drakkar Klose. I mean, not Drakkar Klose, but Alvarez, bro. Like, that dude is dangerous at lightweight, bro. 6'3", lightweight.
Big old dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine crossover being a lightweight. Could you imagine that?
Bro, I couldn't imagine it. There's no way in the world I could get to 155.
Trying to kill our boy, like, god damn. I think his left leg is 155.
Dude, I'll be all kinds of malnourished at 155.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I said, I have a feeling it's going to be one of those cards where we've got Manel Cap back as well. You know how I love Manel Cap.
Mm-hmm.
Still hoping he can sort his shit out. I think it's going to be one of those cards that's going to deliver in terms of the actual quality of fights as opposed to the name value.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to get. I think it's going to be one of those cards that they've kind of set it up in a way where it's going to be like, boom, we're going to get good, exciting fights that's going to leave a positive taste in our mouths, and then possibly Colby out cold to be the last image we get of like 2024, which I think would please a lot. You saw the vitriol that crossover. You see crossover now. He's buzzing. Mm-hmm. Look at him. He's buzzing.
Bro, we need it. We need it.
We do.
We certainly do. Yeah. So, is there anything that you guys want to throw in before we head off, or anything you want to talk about, or anything that's coming up for you guys that you want to let the people know about?
I just want to, man, thank both you guys for having me on. Everybody in the chat, if you don't already, come on over to Crossover MMA. Give me a shout. Check me out. See what you think. If you appreciate it, hey, I'm all for it. But once again, man, always a treat. Look forward to doing another stream with you guys, man. Anytime.
Always.
Yep. Subs all around. Make sure everybody subs to everybody.
I forgot to put the sub stuff in the description, as I'm always doing that. It's like I don't care about any of our careers or growth of any of our channels. It's like, fuck it. It's really poor management on my side.
Yeah, nah. But I do have an episode of the podcast coming out. It might be tonight. Actually, tonight. Me and Frankie actually. We talk about the the top 25 under 25. So y'all should definitely check that out. I'd say in about an hour, if you sub to me, you should be getting a notification. So yeah, man. We'll talk again, I'm sure, once these fights happen. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And again, much love to everyone in the chat who's popped by and spent time with us. It's been a very active one today, and we appreciate it. We do obviously try to engage with the chat as much as we can, but for these ones, it's kind of like, it's one of those just discussion things, and then we try to get people involved as much as possible. But we appreciate the people who obviously hung by and spent time listening to us go off a little bit. And this is more just like a therapy session for after every card, after we're a bit upset, and then we just need to get things out there. But thanks to all those all of you who came by, and we'll look forward to seeing you for the next one, hopefully later on in the week. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.